This was the first case that really took on a life of its own on the internet.
It's a unique case because of the short window when she disappears. She's seen by people and she's gone.
Police finish another day in the search for Maura Murray with more questions than answers.
2 days.
10 days.
1 year.
8 years.
10 years.
15 years.
Almost 20 years later. Where is she?
Maura was my little sister. From being an Army officer.
A wrecked car sitting alone on a dark road. The engine still warm, the doors locked tight, and the woman who was standing right beside it moments earlier? Gone. No footprints leading away, no sign of a struggle, nothing to say she left on her own 2 feet. Police get there in under 10 minutes, and by the time they arrive, she's already disappeared. So what really happened in those 10 minutes? Did someone take her? Did she run? Or did she never make it out of those woods at all? 22 years on, nobody has an answer. Welcome to the disappearance puzzle. In today's case, we're covering the disappearance of Maura Murray. This family has spent over 20 years trying to keep the world from forgetting about her. The least we can do is not let this video be another one that gets forgotten. Subscribe if you want to stay with this story. Hit the like button and let us know where you're watching from. She was 21 years old, the fourth of 5 children born to Fred and Lori Murray, raised in Hanson, Massachusetts. Those who knew her described a young woman who was sharp, driven, and used to setting the pace for everyone around her. In high school, she was a standout runner, fast enough to hold school records on the track, and just as strong in the classroom. That drive carried her to the United States Military Academy at West Point, where she trained alongside future Army officers and studied chemical engineering. But after 2 years, she made a decision that surprised people close to her. She left West Point behind and enrolled at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, switching her focus to nursing. She kept a part-time job on campus and, by all accounts, was doing well. By February 2004, she was months away from finishing her nursing degree. She was also in a relationship with Bill Rausch, a man she'd met during her time at West Point. He was now an Army lieutenant, stationed nearly 2,000 miles away at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. The distance was hard, but by most accounts, the two stayed close, talking often and visiting when they could. Her parents, Fred and Lori, were divorced, but both stayed close to their children, including Maura's sisters, Kathleen and Julie. On the surface, Maura had everything ahead of her, but behind that surface, something was starting to shift. Months earlier, in October of 2003, Maura had been connected to a credit card fraud case in Amherst. It wasn't the kind of thing that made headlines. But looking back, people close to the case point to it as one of the first small signs that something in Maura's life was off balance. On Thursday, February 5th, while working her campus security shift, Maura spoke with her sister Kathleen on the phone. Kathleen would later say the conversation was about ordinary relationship troubles, nothing that raised alarm at the time. But the following night, after another phone call while still on shift, Maura became visibly upset. A supervisor walked her back to her dorm room. Her father, Fred, drove out to visit her that Saturday. The two had dinner together with one of Maura's friends, and Fred mentioned he was looking into buying her a replacement car, since her own Saturn had been having mechanical issues. After dinner, Maura borrowed her father's car, a brand new Toyota Corolla, to attend a party at her dorm. Early the next morning, around 2:30, she was driving that car back toward her father's motel when she went off the road in Hadley, Massachusetts, striking a guardrail. No charges were filed, but the damage came to $8,000. Shaken, she called her boyfriend Bill at almost 5 in the morning. He tried to calm her down over the phone, but he later said something felt different about that call. It wasn't just the accident weighing on her. Nobody knew it yet, but by the next morning, everything about Maura Murray's life was about to change. It's the early hours of February 9th, 2004. While most of campus is asleep, Maura is awake at her computer searching for driving directions. Not to one place, but two: the Berkshires and Burlington, Vermont. Neither of those searches would explain where she actually ended up. By morning, she sends an email to her professors at her work supervisor. In it, she claims there's been a death in the family. It's a lie. No one in her family had died. Whatever she was planning that day, she needed people to believe she'd be gone for a while. She also places a call trying to rent a condo in Bartlett, New Hampshire, a town her family used to vacation in. The call goes nowhere. The property owner later says he doesn't remember speaking to her at all, and no booking is made. Around the same time, she calls a fellow nursing student. To this day, no one knows exactly why. At around 3:40 in the afternoon, surveillance footage catches Maura at an ATM withdrawing $280, most of what she has. From there, she stops to buy alcohol. Then she packs her car, not just for a short trip. She takes her textbooks, her running gear, and paperwork for filing an accident report. Small details, but ones investigators would later flag as important. The kind of things someone takes if they're planning to come back, not disappear for good. She leaves campus and starts driving north. No one she knows is told exactly where she's headed. At 7:17 that evening, she calls Bill Rausch. Their conversation lasts almost 20 minutes. 2 more short calls follow soon after. Whatever was said in those calls, they would be some of the last words she ever spoke to someone who knew her. Not long after hanging up, on a quiet stretch of Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, Maura's car leaves the road. A driver passing by notices the car off to the side and stops to check on her. Maura tells him she's already called for help through AAA. It's a strange thing to say because cell service barely exists in that part of New Hampshire. There's almost no way that call could have gone through. The driver leaves, unaware that what he just witnessed may be the last confirmed sighting of Maura Murray. At 7:27 p.m., a nearby resident calls 911 to report the crash. Within minutes, an officer is dispatched. By 7:46, less than 20 minutes after that first call, he arrives at the scene. The car is locked, the area around it is silent, and Maura is nowhere to be found. Inside the vehicle, investigators later note several details. The windshield is cracked, the airbags have deployed, the gas tank is nearly full despite the drive she'd just made, and in the tailpipe, an officer finds a rag stuffed in from the trunk, part of a roadside emergency kit Fred had kept in the car. To this day, no one has definitively explained who put it there or why. There's no sign of footprints leading away through the snow, no trail, no indication which direction she went or whether she left on her own at all. In the time between that crash and the officer's arrival, barely more than 10 minutes, Maura Murray vanished without a trace. At first, investigators didn't treat the scene as a crime. Maura was a legal adult, and there was no confirmed evidence that anything criminal had taken place. That decision would shape the entire case moving forward, and it's one the family has criticized ever since. Years later, officials with the New Hampshire Attorney General's office would acknowledge that no confirmed sighting of Maura has ever surfaced since that night, not one credible lead placing her anywhere after the crash. Search teams eventually brought in scent dogs to try to pick up her trail. The dogs followed her scent for about 100 meters down the road before it disappeared, right in the middle of the street. No clear direction, no clear answer. Ground searches covered miles of surrounding forest in the days and weeks that followed, through some of the harshest winter conditions the region sees all year. They turned up nothing. Maura's family wasn't even told what had happened until nearly a full day later. Her sister Kathleen got the call first, then had to reach out to the rest of the family herself, asking why their father's car was sitting on the side of a road in another state. That missing day, the hours between the crash and the family finding out, is one investigators and relatives alike point to as a turning point. It was time that couldn't be gotten back. Her father, Fred, wasn't willing to wait for others to search. He drove up to New Hampshire and combed the area himself, week after week, alongside anyone willing to help. What should have been police-led search efforts became in large part a father searching for his daughter on his own. Frustrated with how little information police were sharing, Fred took the case to court, demanding access to the investigative files. During the proceedings, the family's attorney pushed prosecutors to at least confirm publicly that this was being treated as a criminal case. The state wouldn't go that far, saying only that a crime could not be confirmed with complete certainty. That fight escalated all the way to the New Hampshire Supreme Court. In the end, the state maintained its position. The case was still an open investigation, and most records would stay sealed or heavily redacted. Some documents were eventually released, but with so much blacked out that they offered the family little new information. At one point, cadaver dogs responded to a house near the crash site, specifically to an area in the basement. It was a new development in a case that had been silent for years, and it gave Fred a reason to hope. Investigators eventually agreed to excavate the space. After digging several feet down, they found nothing connected to Maura, just a small fragment of what looked like old pottery or piping. For a family already running on borrowed hope, it was another door closing. Maura's case didn't stay confined to New Hampshire police files. Her disappearance happened just 5 days after Facebook went live, and it became one of the first missing persons cases to spread through the early internet. Online forums picked apart every detail of the timeline. That attention brought real value, tips, shared sightings, and public pressure that kept the case from fading. It also drew national media coverage over the years, television specials, a published book examining the case, and a documentary series that laid out the competing theories in detail. But all that attention came with a cost. It opened the door to years of rumors, invented theories, and strangers accusing people close to Maura with no evidence to back it up. Something the family has spent almost as much energy correcting as they've spent actually searching for answers. On the 10th anniversary of her disappearance, the lead prosecutor on the case confirmed publicly that there had still been no credible sightings of Maura since the night she vanished. Years later, on the 15th anniversary, Fred Murray told reporters he believed his daughter was dead, and that his suspicions still centered on that house near the crash site where cadaver dogs had once responded. Every anniversary since has brought the same wave of renewed attention and the same lack of resolution. Away from the investigation itself, more was uncovered about the people connected to Maura's life. Years later, Bill Rausch, who had gone on to become an Army major, pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor assault charge tied to a separate incident at his workplace in Washington, D.C. in 2011. That case had nothing to do with Maura's disappearance, and he was never named a suspect or charged in connection with it. As the years passed and no answers came, Maura's sister Julie took matters into her own hands. She built a website dedicated to sharing accurate, verified information about the case, hoping to push back against the flood of rumors and misinformation spreading online. Later, she launched a podcast called The Untold Story of Maura Murray and built a following of close to 300,000 people on social media, all in an effort to keep her sister's story alive and correct. She's answered questions directly from the public for years, walking through the details of the case herself rather than letting outside speculation fill the silence. That silence has weighed heaviest on Fred Murray. For over 2 decades, he's driven the same roads, followed the same leads, and sat through the same disappointments, each time hoping the next one would be different. Kathleen, Maura's older sister, passed away before the case was ever solved, one more reminder to the family that time isn't standing still for anyone, even while the investigation itself has moved so slowly. More than 2 decades later, there's still no single accepted explanation for what happened to Maura Murray. Investigators and researchers have circled around 3 main possibilities. Some believe she chose to disappear on her own, overwhelmed by the pressure building in the days before. The fake email, the fraud case, the fight with her father's car, and whatever was troubling her in that early morning call to Bill. Supporters of this theory point to the items she packed, especially the accident forms and running gear, as proof she meant to start over somewhere new rather than vanish for good. Others believe she was picked up by someone on that road that night and never had the chance to return, pointing to the AAA lie and the impossible cell service as signs something didn't add up about that encounter. And some believe she never made it out of the surrounding woods at all, that she wandered off disoriented after the crash, and that decades of ground searches, scent dogs, and volunteers simply never found her in that terrain. None of these theories has ever been confirmed. None has ever been ruled out completely either. That's part of what has kept this case alive for over 20 years. Every angle still technically fits, and every answer raises 3 new questions. You've made it this far because you want to know what happened. So do we. Cases like this stay cold because people stop paying attention. Subscribe now because we're not stopping until there's an answer, and you shouldn't miss it when we get there. In 2021, human remains were discovered near Loon Mountain, roughly 25 miles from where Maura's car went off the road. For a moment, it seemed like the case might finally close. Investigators moved quickly to test the remains against Maura's case file. But the results determined the remains fell outside the time frame that would match her disappearance. Another lead, gone, and another difficult wait for a family that had learned not to get its hopes too high. In 2024, New Hampshire authorities released an age progression image of Maura, an attempt built with the help of federal investigators to show what she might look like today, more than 2 decades after she went missing. And as recently as this year, New Hampshire's Cold Case Unit confirmed the investigation is still active. Senior Assistant Attorney General Christopher Knowles, who leads the unit, stated that investigators continue working daily on the case, pursuing every credible lead and applying new technology and techniques, tools that didn't exist back in 2004, to the evidence they still have. 22 years have passed since Maura Murray disappeared on that New Hampshire road. Her car is long gone. Most of the officers who first responded that night have moved on. Communities across Massachusetts and New Hampshire have kept showing up year after year, walking the same woods, handing out the same flyers, refusing to let the case quietly fade the way so many others do. But the central question hasn't moved an inch. Somewhere, someone may know exactly what happened in those 10 minutes on Route 112. Until they come forward, or until new evidence surfaces, Maura Murray remains exactly where she's been since February 9th, 2004, missing and unexplained. If this case left you with more questions than answers, you're not alone. That's exactly why we cover stories like this. Cases that never got the resolution they deserved. Cases like Maura's only stay in front of people because viewers like you keep them there. Subscribe to this channel so this isn't the last time you hear her name, and let us know in the comments which unsolved case you want us to dig into next.